We're live. Excellent. So, my name's Stephen Thompson. I own a social media agency in Norwich called Big Daddy PR. And I'm also a mental health advocate, and I do some great work with Mind, hence the big banner behind it. This is Paul Hammond, and I met Paul, well, actually, I'm going to let you in a minute explain how we met, because that should be a nice icebreaker. I run Facebook Live every Monday called Mental Health Monday, and how that came about was I teach people how to use social media. I teach people how to get over the fear of social media and make the best out of their business and their personal brand simply by using video, because it is the best tool we've got for marketing at the moment, as well as voice. What I did was I did a guest speaking slot in Norwich, talking about the fear, anxiety, the issues that people have up here with putting their message across. So what I did was I actually put my money where my mouth was. So that day, after the event, I went back and did a Facebook Live explaining how I use video, how you can get over the fear of using video and putting your message across. And it just weirdly happened to be on World Mental Health Day. Thought we had a fire alarm there. There was no planned fire alarms. So I went back. I did this first video. Again, that's how sort of myself and Paul came about. But on World Mental Health Day, I was just talking about how to get over the fear of video, because we all look like we do. We all sound like we do. Everyone thinks it's different on camera, but it's actually not. I sound like this. I'm from the northwest originally. I moved down to Lowestoft when I was 16 and now live in Norwich. I have a very mixed accent. Yes, I feel completely overweight for what I am. People say I look alright with clothes on and all that stuff. But we still have real focus about who we are and what we're about. So I said, right, we'll put my money where my mouth was. Did a Facebook Live, got 1,000 views in the hour that I did it at. I was like, okay, this is good. It's still growing now. Met up with Paul. We've done a Facebook Live interview like this, actually in Lowestoft at one of our clients' addresses, and that's now just short of 4,000 views. Yeah. That's just 4,000 views. 2 weeks ago, we did another Mental Health Monday with a chap called Finbar, who is the enterprise officer at the UEA, where I'm a business mentor. That was like 2 weeks ago. It's now on 5,000 views, and people really want to know. He's got bipolar and openly spoken about it. So that's what we want to. We really want to raise the profile by using what we've got, which is digital, just social media. So that's why I'm sort of kind of here today. Spoke to Todd. Todd knew what sort we were doing. Said it'd be really great if we could do as a Facebook Live from the event. So here we are. I will introduce this great man because he's doing some amazing things. So Paul.
Thank you for joining us, Steve. I'll tell you shortly about how we met and what we've been doing. My name is Paul Hammond, and I suffer from complex PTSD. That is where a person suffers a number of traumatic events together or one after the other over a period of years that has a very distressing and traumatic effect on your life. I'm glad we're here in this small room because I've already told Todd if we'd been on the big stage, you'd have to sellotape the microphone to my hand, otherwise I'd drop it, and I definitely would want coffee intravenously fed. Because, until 6 years ago, I could stand on stage in front of 15,000 people and control the moment. This time last year, I spent 9 months living in one room in my house. It's been a very emotional day watching some fantastic speakers talking about very, very different subjects. And again, this is a different side to PTSD today, because I realise with the therapist that I'm talking to, with the counselling support, actually the blueprint of my failing in life, if you want, it's this way that it's seen, actually began with my mum and dad and what they experienced in their life, because my father was a soldier with the Royal Anglian Regiment. He fought during the war. He's at Dunkirk. He was at the Normandy invasion. And he was a very proud man, and he never spoke about it all of his life. And I realised that what I accepted was a normal life living with my parents was actually anything but. We never had time to go fishing together, to kick a football about. You always told that, keep your head down, you work, you get on with life, you don't expect nothing, and that was normal life. So I thought, I accepted that, and whatever I did in life wasn't good enough. I worked and I tried to get on, and I thought, this isn't, whatever I do here isn't right. And sometimes you can look back on life and it's very distant and foggy, and you can think about it and be, you know, oh, that's okay, I can talk about it. And sometimes it's very emotional and very distressing, and there are parts of my life that I know it'll take the rest of my life to actually confront and talk about. Things really started around about 88. In the space of 7 days, I lost my father, and I lost my partner. Now, I'm happy to talk about it, I'm happy to show the emotion, because all I've had since then is people saying, mental health disability doesn't exist. If you can't see it, it's not there. What I did, really, I didn't accept what happened in my life. So I absolutely threw myself, head, shoulders, everything into the next 10 years. Nothing was impossible. Paul, I bet you can't do the triathlon. Yeah, I'll go out and do that. I did that. Oh, well, that's easy. Go and do a marathon. I did the London Marathon. I bet you can't stand in a swim pool for 24 hours and swim up and down. Yeah, I can do that. I did that. And it went on and on and on. I spent 3 years of my life doing a 200-acre disability project for people on the farm. And at one point, I woke up in the morning realising I was working 135 hours a week. I was living in a rat-infested barn above a farm shop, putting everyone's life ahead of mine. And had life not changed then, I don't think I'd be here today. I remember the night time that we had to go down to London to pick up all the goods in Spitalfields Market and come back to the farm shop. And when we were travelling back, we were hit head on by an Arctic. I ended up in half a man in the ditch. And I can't remember the next 9 months. I warned you, this could be difficult.
Yeah.
That is only scratching the surface. Those 9 months, the friends I trusted around me actually walked away from me. When I woke up, I had lost everything. I had just a shirt on my back, my savings, the park, everything had gone. And I refused to give up. It was this thing that Dad had told me, you don't give up, you bounce back. You know, you've got to be stronger. You can't be ill, this doesn't exist. So I threw myself back into a conservation project. I went back to college, I did a degree in agriculture, horticulture and conservation, which I was very proud to pass with honours. And not wanting to do any small project, I set up my own conservation business, which in the space of 7 or 8 years went from nothing to one of the top 3 conservation wildlife businesses in the country, and it was phenomenal. And again, I woke up one day, I thought, here we go again, 135 hours a week. I thought, oh, you know. And I became very ill, and I was doing everything myself, and there was something that always stuck in my mind. When I was younger, I had my fortune told. And she was very good, and she came back one day and she'd done the cards, whatever, she'd got this 9-page report. I said, let's go through it, and the past was spot on, and the present was spot on. I said, what about the future? She said, well, there's good news and there's bad news. I said, well, what's the good news? She said, well, you've spent your entire life on stage entertaining people. That was my life. Music was my life. I spent 35 years winning 7 national awards. I was one of the top DJs in the country. She said, you're going to carry on doing that. You're going to move back to the East Coast and you're going to entertain thousands of people. I said, what's the bad news? She said, your love life's going to be shit, mate. I thought, great, you know, so I'm back doing it for myself again. But anyway.
And it has been, hasn't it?
It has been. Yeah, it gets worse. And you have to throw some humour into it, otherwise you never get through it. But I got to the point again in my life, I was doing all these hours, working for everyone else, I thought, I need some inspiration. I turned on the TV and Bob Geldof came onto the TV. He is one man I would like to meet today, to speak to tell him my experience, what happened next, and actually point out the truth of what then happened. It was about the Horn of Africa famine crisis. And I'll get there. This is why I'm very just scratching the surface of this. It was the worst humanitarian crisis in the world ever. And he was putting out an appeal. And I thought, hey, my dad said I could do anything, I can do this. So I got in touch with my dad's regiment, the Royal Anglian. I said, I want to help. I'll get an aid convoy together. And I did, and I spent a year, and we collected 30 tons of aid. And the army stepped in and said, right, you get it to the west coast, our army port there, we'll take it across. So many people have said to me, how do you know the stuff is going to get there? I said, you're right, I don't. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go as well. And the army said, well, you can be attached to the army, you know, for the time you're out there. It was going to Kenya and the Batak headquarters. I said, I did. I walked away from a successful DJ career, a successful business, my own house, a career as an author. I have 3 books published. I don't know where to fit it all in. And believe it or not, I was actually playing in the World Championship Bowls at the same time in my spare time. I actually made it to Potters. I got to the playoffs. I thought, yeah, I can squeeze something else in, what the hell? So I did, and I left with the British Army on what was going to be a 3-week reconnaissance tour to see what life was like and to take 30 tons of aid out there. I can honestly say, Bob Geldof, you lied, because what you see on TV is not even scratching the surface of the reality of the truth. Even with the security of the army, we're not safe out there. I went for 3 weeks, I stayed 2.5 years. It's not easy, I apologise, but it's important. We worked in the Kibera slums in Nairobi and the Nikki slums in Nanyuki. Everything in Kenya is corrupt, from the lowest of the officials all the way up to the president. Nothing is done without backhanders. You have to fight hammer and nail to get the aid to where it's supposed to go. The first month I was there, it's okay, I can do this. It puts it in perspective. 25,000 children under 5 died through lack of water and food.
I'm going to step in, all right? Okay. So I'm going to step in because it's not fair on Paul. I've heard this story before, but cannot give it the justice that Paul, and really the context that Paul can give it. I will cut it very, very short for you guys because we're going to go for 30 minutes, and I think that's plenty of time. As a result of what Paul saw and experienced, and if someone could turn the kettle off, that'd be great. As a result of what Paul saw and experienced, and obviously all the other things, and sort of really going down to childhood roots, that's what's triggered his mental illness and his PTSD. The great things that have come out of that, because there is a silver lining to everything, and I think this is why myself and Paul have connected. You know, Paul taught me what he's experienced, and he shared it with me. I then look back at my life, and that's why I continue with the Mental Health Mondays, is because actually from the age of 6 years old, I was suffering from grief. I never realised, and there's so many people out here today who will be suffering from things that don't even realise are mental health issues, and grief is a massive one. So that was my journey, and that's how myself and Paul have connected.
Yeah.
The great thing that Paul was doing was he came to me just before Christmas and said, I'm writing a book, which is the one up here. And as a result, I'm like, he really undervalues the amount it takes on. So he's writing a book. We've got 20 music events going on in Lowestoft this year, I believe. So far. And it's all to raise money for mental health. It's also to raise awareness for mental health. It's also to make everybody else see that actually, you know, adults, young people, carers, they all suffer from these challenges. My biggest issue with mental health, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone, and I promise I'm not discriminating, but men don't talk about it. They really don't. I've not talked about it. You know, the strength I see in this man is phenomenal. So, and that's what we wanted to share today. Was more about not so much the story. It's the strength, and that people, you know, guys can talk, guys can cry, guys can give each other hugs and everything, and they don't have to bottle that up.
Okay, now.
You all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll cut brief from there, but 2.5 years out there, I lost everything. I came back, and I talk about complex PTSD. I won't go into because we're all getting tearful, but in short, within 3 months I lost my house. The bank stepped in and took it away. Because I started sharing my story online as part of my rehab, my getting the message out there. This is how we first, came to meet each other. The Kenyan government didn't take kindly to me telling the truth about what's going on out there, and I was very honest about the truth. In fact, one thing I always remember and laugh is I met a wonderful man in Kenya called John Mishuki. He was the Minister for the Environment. He's one of the old-fashioned ministers. And I said to him, how can you justify all the corruption in Kenya? And he said, well, actually, in Britain, they said, you're just as corrupt, it's just that you're more clever at hiding it. Well, that's very true. But I came back, and they didn't like the fact that I was sharing my stories online. We had over 5,000 members of the press, the media, all telling the story. So they sent somebody over to make me disappear, basically. And for 9 months, I lived in one room in my house. I had over 90 odd death threats. But as to say, that was, and then when I did come back to the UK, I came back to a very abusive partner, and for 4 years I pretty much lived in a hole in the ground, just couldn't cope with life. I did. When the bank took the house away, I tried to kill myself. That wasn't the last time I thought about it, and for many months, music came back into my life. To start with, I'd spend every night, the music turned up as loud as it could go, screaming in the house down. I bet the neighbours loved me. But, it's my way of coping. Music was my life, 35 years on stage, and it kept me going. And then as I was sharing my story, several people came forward and said, Paul, you're writing, it's so emotional, so passionate. Why don't you write a book? And it was actually Peter Aldiss who turned around one day when I was in a meeting with him. He said, Paul, he said, you've got to tell your story. So I decided to, yeah, okay, I can do this. And I started writing, and in sharing my stories, I bumped into Steve, and we got talking about it, and I talked about my long-term plans with the music, and we met up, and we recorded an interview, and I thought, that'll probably get 10 or 15 people to watch that, and you know, 3 weeks and 3,000 people later, I thought, wow, you know, we could really get the message out there. And it was a difficult Christmas, New Year, and I thought, well, I need something positive now to happen for mental health. I can, you know, really get the message out there. And I decided to use my music knowledge, my experience on stage. I said, how about if we do some old-fashioned nostalgia music nights for my age group, as I'm slightly over 30.
And I think we've got to put it into context as well, because this gentleman here set up what was, or is, it still is, Blue Notes?
Yes.
So the first ever Blue Notes, this is the guy who set it up. So when I first moved to Lowestoft, when I was 16, so that was 1993, I used to go to the Spiral, that was back in the day, so, you know, and Paul was a big part of that. He was, you know, one of the leading DJs around this region, you know, setting up Bourbon Street and things like that too. And then, you know, the big thing for me that did get me from Paul's stories, and when he moved away, he went to work at a nightclub in Birmingham. And you can see where all the passion is in the music. It's like, why don't we just drive this forward into these events? So we want to bring positivity back into the mental health arena. You know, it used to be a support act for Duran Duran. You know, how cool is that? You know, I was well impressed. I was like, okay, this is cool. You know, I was playing bands around here and gig with rock bands and stuff, but you know, what people have behind them, we just don't know. You know, you see Paul, he lives in Lowestoft, he walks, you know, through the town centre. You know, he's an old bloke, but has all this history behind him, but also suffers from some severe mental health issues. So I think for us today, the main thing is to get everybody to share the story, to share what's going on here, to share the great work within with Mind, and also to try and get you guys, you know, I'm really happy that we've got a really nice, small, intense audience. We haven't got 200 or 300 people in the room, because I can actually see everyone here. I can see everyone nodding. We can see the emotion behind it. So if I can see that in you, surely you can see that in us. And what we want to do is we want to raise the profile of mental health, like anybody else does. We really want people to talk about it. So when we wrap up at 3 o'clock, what would be great is actually to get, if someone wants to give their experiences, let's go live on it. If anybody's got any questions, fire them over to us. Come and take a seat with us. You know, and if you want to, there's no pressure, but you know, share some stories, share what you're doing, show other people. You know, if you can change somebody's life with like 5 or 6 words, then do it, because that's all we want to do. Is we want to be able to make people feel really, really comfortable about it. I know from my business and my life, you know, I lived in Lowestoft, well, until about 6 or 7 years ago. I used to be a policeman in Norwich. I was on the drug squad. I've got all of that to go as well. And it's like, but I know how you can just make a difference for somebody's life by using social media in the right way, and that's what we're doing today. You know, Paul's got opinions on his experience, and maybe some that maybe you shouldn't say, and we might get some grief for later on by Bob Geldof and this, that, and the other. You know, I'm sure we'll get tweeted at some point, but that's fine, because we're all entitled to an opinion, and we've got a really good place to put it. So many people use social media for the wrong things, so let's use what we've got, the tools like Facebook Live, like Twitter, like Instagram, and things like that, to talk to people and share stories, because that's what we're in it for. You know, I own a social media agency. We run businesses and all that stuff over there. That's great, but that actually gives me the tools and experience to help other people to do the really cool stuff, which is share stories. You know, and there's businesses in the room. That's how you sell your business. You share a story. You storytell. So if anyone's got any questions you want to fire our way, please do. It doesn't mean you're going to have to bring your chair up here though. Who's brave enough? Excellent. Come on over. We need a chair. You can have mine.
Hi. It's really good to listen to you. My question is, I think it's great raising the profile about mental health, but whilst I see lots of people here getting enthusiastic and giving their voluntary support and all the rest of it, how do you feel about the structural changes that have been made by the government? And we've got Peter Oldys in the room. You know, the austerity cuts, the homeless problem, the support services for mental health are all being pulled away from under our feet, is how I feel about it. So how do you feel about that kind of thing?
I have to 100% agree with you. I mean, I've been very open in all the monthly stories I share, and it isn't just a case I write a story and it goes out to a couple of people. It goes out to every local, regional, national newspaper, media group, mental health support group, and I get the feedback. And I will say, you know, I mean, a lot of people have got different opinions of Peter, but Peter has, in all the times I've talked to him, he has spoken out against a lot of the cuts, and I know he stood against the government recently on some of the cuts, and you know, I respect that, but I do speak my mind, and I've said for the last 4 years, the cuts are wrong. The system with the benefits, is, especially with disability, is totally wrong, and it's now been proven because the United Nations ruled in our favour. Mind had a fantastic campaign which went to court and found in our favour, and the government have accepted that. But we need a lot more funding in not just disability, but also all parts of the NHS. I haven't been able to get any counselling or support for the last 2 years because the funding is gone.
Yeah.
I've had to go private. I've sold personal possessions to raise the money, you know. It's wrong. You know, it's not just the poor and the working class that's being hurt. I've got friends of mine, ex-soldiers, living on the streets.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's awful, and I'd also say that your experiences in Kenya. I think what you said about the British government is correct in that there is corruption here, not in such a blatant way, but the fact that we've got the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and the poor being squeezed with the cuts, I think is awful. And I think a lot of the problems that are going on in places like Kenya, you can't just say it's over there and it's their corruption. That happens from us, you know, to them. The things like the Saudi Arabia selling arms to Saudi Arabia, all of this needs to change, I think, and I think that would make it better for everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
That was our first brave person. Who's next? Come on over. Do some chair. What's going on? Come and grab a seat.
Hello. I'd like to talk about those people who cannot handle a story like yours and who just blank out.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of people are like that because there is quite a bit of discrimination against mental illness, and they try and hide the fact that there is mental illness or mental illness in their family.
Yes.
Because they just can't handle that sort of thing.
I think you're absolutely right. Again, I can speak on personal experience of that because you expect your close friends and family to understand and support you. I've encountered so many times where people just switch off, blank. I'll be quite honest, I had about 6 months ago, I actually had hate mail from a member of the family, and they said, you just need to kick up the backside, there's no such thing as mental health illness, you'll get a life. So my counsellor, the therapist, was very good. They said, well, what you've got to do, don't care who it is, family, friend, if they think that little of you, you turn away, you walk away from them. You push them out of your life. Now, I've tackled that 2 ways. I'm doing that, I'm letting into my life everyone who is genuine, but I also realise that the only way to get the message across is to do something that is positive, that people can switch onto and enjoy, which is why I'm doing the music, because at the end of the day, if music helps to get the message across that you can enjoy yourself and talk sensibly and promote something important like mental health and fundraise for it, then that's something I can do. And yeah, I think that's the only way to change. It's not going to happen in weeks or months. It's going to take years to change people's perception of mental health. And we have to accept, unfortunately, there'll be those that never accept it.
Yeah.
Well done for speaking out. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. thank you ever so much for joining us today. It is 3 o'clock, and we know this thing's going on over about 3:10, so we want to wrap things up. So just bear with me a second. There's a few rules we have to do with Facebook, which is to say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you for watching the replay, because a lot of people will watch the replay. So if you're ever going to go on to, you know, literally get the bull by the horns and share your story or something you want to talk about that's going to give some positive support towards mental health, go online, ask people to share it for you, and then thank people for watching the replay, because most people will be watching a replay. They won't be watching it live, because you might not be there when you're about. Say
one final thing on the music.
Paul's going to sort of give you a final thing on the music, and I'm going to tell you more about how you can hear and more on supporting mental health. So I run a Facebook Live every Monday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So the idea is to grab people in their lunch hour, whether it's 30 minutes, 10 minutes. You can find it on my Facebook page. Paul shares them. A lot of people do. And what we do is we talk from experience. And if you want to talk, if you think away from this, think, you know what, I've got something to share, by all means, come to the Facebook Live, send me a message, and I'll invite you in, and we can do it two-way, and we can chat about it and share your experiences. Or if you think there's somebody that will really benefit from just hearing a positive message about it, share it across to them, tag them in it, whatever you want to do. That is every Monday at 12 o'clock. Paul's been a guest on there. We've got a few other people in the room as well who've been guests on there too. John. And it does really, really help. And it's, you'd be surprised how social media is actually a positive place to put things. You know, we have a lot of challenges with social media being negative, and schools want to brush it out and this, that and the other. And I'm a business mentor and a mentor in schools, and we go in and we help young people raise their self-esteem, raise their self-worth, actually by using social media. I lost 2 friends when I was in the police. One was my crew partner. He committed suicide, and I'd only spoken to him 2 weeks before he took his life, and he called out on Facebook, and nobody saw it, no one paid any attention. The other guy, who's a family friend, I spoke to him 2 weeks before he took his life, and he's a celebrity around here. You'll all know him. His name's Little Chris. You know, Little Chris was a family friend of mine, and I was working at a radio station at the time. He picked up and said, "I've got a new album out." I said, "Great, let's have a chat about it." That was 2 weeks before he took his own life. They're really sad things, and why should we be waiting till, you know, there's loads of positive stuff out there about men's mental health and suicide and this and that, but why wait till it gets up there? Why not early intervention? You know, so if you just think, you know what, I've not spoke to somebody for a long time, or actually you walk out of here and they pop into your mind, just go and reach out to them on Facebook. You know, find out how they are, because you just never know. And that was they were two of my personal experiences. I spoke to 2 friends who took their lives. I spoke to them 2 weeks before, one in a garage and one on the telephone, and just didn't know, because we all look all right on the outside. We all look okay or fine. They're the phrases, aren't they? Okay, I'm okay, I'm fine. And a lot of people aren't. So just reach out to somebody. I'm going to leave Paul to finish on what he's got to talk about, and thank you very much.
Okay. I guess most of you have seen the film The Shawshank Redemption, which is a wonderful piece of work, and there's a line in that where he's sitting in his room contemplating the rope, and he says, well, I've got to decide, I've got to get busy living or get busy dying. And he decides to get busy living, and that's a line I always think about my life and what brought me to the music. And I realised music was carrying me through. I thought, well, I need to demonstrate I can do that. So I sold my record collection, 10,500 records, vinyl, to fund the entire project, because I thought, if I'm going to go to any of the people like the Arts Council, whatever, and ask for help long-term on the project, I need to prove, you know, what I want to do. So I did, and we started off with small events, because me going back on even a small stage after 5 years of not getting out of one room in the house is, not doing that. So the Oak Tavern in Lowestoft, it's been my safe house for the last 15 months. It's one place I go once a week. The staff, the management, the customers all know me, they look after me. So I said, right, we'll do the first little gigs here. So we're doing 20 gigs over 2 years. But starting next year, we're going to be doing larger gigs, and what we want to do eventually, and I'm hoping within the next 18 months, is a gig in the park. For example, Sparrow's Nest, 5,000 people there, all the support groups with stalls there. I've already got DJs, bands, people who want to come and support, but have spokesmen like Steve and Todd and John there, and make an all-day, all weekend event. And the equipment I've already purchased will do small, medium, and festivals. And what is really encouraging is that in the space of a week of advertising the idea, we've been approached by 2 other festivals. So the message is out there, and I think music and mental health can go hand in hand. People can enjoy themselves, raise money, talk about something that needs to be discussed, and work together. So Steve and I will be doing just that this year and next year and the rest of our natural lives. So thank you very much for being here today.
I better turn this off. Thank you ever so much.